What better way for the Pac-12 to go out as a conference than with the rematch of the century? The Washington Huskies and the Oregon Ducks. So much drama, so many storylines, and who doesn't love rivalries? These teams and fan bases absolutely hate each other, maybe even more than their own in-state rivals. In the first matchup between these schools in 2023, it was historic. It was the first time where these teams met while both being ranked in the top 10, and to say it lived up to the hype and delivered is an understatement. This was one of the games of the year in college football. Some questionable calls by Oregon head coach Dan Lanning, a clutch fourth quarter drive by Heisman contender Michael Penix, and a missed field goal in the final seconds by Ducks kicker Camden Lewis ultimately propelled the Huskies to win on their beautiful home field in Seattle. This game had a little bit of everything, and now even more is on the line in this top 5 clash. The final conference title in the history of the Pac-12, a possible Heisman Trophy campaign, and a spot in the college football playoff. Oregon and Washington fans, I've been seeing you guys beef in my comments section for months, and I love it. This is what college football is all about. If you aren't ready to run through a wall after hearing this, you don't love football. Now, who wins the game? Watch to the end to find out. What's up, guys? Before we get started, go in the comment section right now and tell me, who do you think's going to win this game? I'm Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football content. If you're new, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on another awesome upload like this. And without further ado, let's get into it starting right now. We knew these were the two best teams in the Pac-12 early on in the season, but there was no guarantee they would meet again because of the consistent parity we see year after year in the conference. And even if they did, the chances of them both winning out were very low. Each of these teams had to go through Utah, USC, and Oregon State, which are all solid programs, but they each won out in very different ways. Many things have changed since the first meeting on October 14th, and you could say Oregon and Washington have been trending in opposite directions. But the common denominator is they both got the job done. First, let's start with Oregon. They've won 6 straight games, outscoring opponents 252-96. That number is just absurd. They've looked dominant on both sides of the ball, and they easily look like a top 4 team in the country. But wait, they haven't played anyone. That's a sentiment around most of the country besides the West Coast, and I totally disagree with that statement. Before I get into the specifics, the Pac-12 is one of the deepest conferences in the country, and it's not easy to win, let alone blow out opponents week in and week out. This is backed by the fact that the Pac-12 went 29-5 in non-conference play through September, the highest winning percentage among the Power 5 conferences. You cannot argue with that. Let's talk about Oregon's signature wins. First was at home against rival Oregon State, where they won 31-7 and controlled the game from the first whistle. This was an 8-3 Oregon State team with 3 losses all coming by a field goal or less, including the previous week where they were a safety away from beating Washington. The Beavers also possess one of the best offensive lines and rushing attacks in the country, so what did Oregon do? They held them to 53 yards on the ground, which is super impressive. The Ducks also did what no team could do since 2020, which was beating Utah and Salt Lake City, and they did it emphatically, winning 35-6. Although the reigning back-to-back Pac-12 champion Utah Utes didn't play to their usual standard this year, winning in that environment like that is almost unheard of. Kyle Whittingham is a great coach and usually doesn't let his team get ran off the field, but Dan Lanning had a much better scheme and execution that day. After the Ducks lost to the Huskies, Bo Nix was nowhere near the top of the Heisman Trophy race, but now he's the front runner for the award, and the hype is totally deserved. Bo has flourished under Dan Lanning's offensive system. During the 6-game win streak, he has been nearly perfect, throwing for 20 touchdowns, rushing for 5, and throwing only 1 interception. He is the second most efficient quarterback in college football and the leader for passing yards. He has a plethora of weapons at wide receiver, including his brother Tez Johnson, Troy Franklin, and Terrence Ferguson at tight end. And that's why Oregon leads the country in passing and are second in points scored. The Washington Huskies are a whole different story. First, we must congratulate them on going 12-0, as they're the first team in Pac-12 history to go through the conference unscathed, and that's a testament to the parity and the close-level competition that West Coast fans have grown accustomed to. The fact that they never let up and stayed focused is a product of good coaching by Kalen DeBoer. However, if we're being honest, the Huskies haven't looked the same after the game against Oregon. They've been barely scraping by in every game, causing an immense amount of stress for the fan base. Their average margin of victory in the last 6 contests has just been by 6 points. And the thing is, some of these games are against weak opponents. For example, they won 15-7 in an ugly home game against a 3-9 Arizona State. Another questionable one was recently in the rivalry game, where they barely escaped on a last-second field goal to win 24-21 against a 5-7 Washington State. There are more examples I could bring up, but you guys get the point. And by the way, these are common opponents that the Ducks are absolutely cooking. I won't take away their gutty road win against a number 11 Oregon State, but everything else hasn't been impressive. They've looked extremely sluggish, but this doesn't mean I'm saying they're a bad team. Some teams in college football play down to their competition, meaning almost every game's going to be close, whether you're playing an Oregon or an Arizona State. We've seen this before. In fact, this team reminds me a lot of last year's TCU because both teams grind out close battles and find a way to win. You might laugh because TCU left a bad taste in everyone's mouth during the national championship, but they did beat Michigan in the semifinal, which was a notable feat. After the win against Oregon, I thought Michael Penix Jr. was a lock for the Heisman Trophy. He had the numbers, he had the sauce, and even had his Heisman moment in the final drive. But right now, he's third in the odds behind Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. This doesn't mean he can't win it, because I actually think the winner of this game will take home the trophy. Even though Jaden Daniels is having an unreal year, the fact that he's not playing in a conference championship is going to hurt him. Heisman voters tend to get swayed mightily by recent performances. If Penix throws for 3 or more touchdowns in a win, he gets the Heisman. If Bo Nix does the same in a win, he seals it too. Not only are they playing for the Heisman, the winner of this is pretty much a lock for the playoff, which hasn't been done by the conference in over 6 years. Win, and you're in. Oregon is favored early in the week by 9.5 points, which is pretty ridiculous if you ask me. I'd expect it to be much closer, and I think that's how it's going to turn out. The last 6 games mean nothing. Both teams have a fresh slate, and there's a trend with Washington. They play in close games, and I don't think that's going to change with this one, even with Oregon looking so hot. Washington still has the same weapons that they used the first time to beat Oregon. But if you look closely at the first matchup, Oregon outgained UW by 126 yards. They won the turnover battle, and they had a greater time of possession. I said this in my previous videos, and I'll say it now. Oregon wins that game 9 out of 10 times, and it was very shocking that they didn't. I don't think Dan Lanning lets that happen again. Both of these teams have amazing quarterbacks who are bound to play on Sundays, along with great rushing attacks behind Bucky Irving and Dylan Johnson, respectively. Extremely balanced and well-matched. But Oregon has the slightly better defense, and I think that'll make the difference in this game. Also, playing in a neutral site in Las Vegas will be much easier than the hostile environment in Seattle. This one goes down to the wire, but Oregon wins by a field goal. Everyone in the country has been starving to see this rematch after the fireworks we got in the first one. I can confidently say that this is the most anticipated game in Pac-12 history. There's never been more on the line, and I don't think I've ever been this hyped for a college football game in my entire life. This is truly a fairy tale ending. Tell me in the comments who you think gets it done and why. Say it with your chest and defend your chosen team. Thank you guys so much for reaching the end of the video. Your support has been unmatched and it inspires me to keep making more. If you're new, check out all my other videos. If you like this one, you're going to love those ones even more. I've been Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.